What's up, comic and pop culture fans? I'm joined here today by King Shark to talk to you about overpaying. Is there any scenario where overpaying for a comic is actually justified? My thoughts on overpaying in general, and a little bit of how you can avoid overpaying for comics. My challenge to you is write in the comments below a book that you almost pulled the trigger on and didn't. And then later you were able to find it at a much more reasonable price. I love hearing those types of stories because it showcases your self-control and it shows the rest of the community how we should be acting. So if you were to ask me, hey, I overpaid for this item, do you think this was a good idea? I probably would say no. There really are very, very few situations where overpaying for something is a good idea. In recent years, and I say in recent years because I didn't used to do this, but in recent years, I've gotten pretty good at being able to walk away, say no to a certain collectible or comic. Sometimes you see it come up and you feel that desire that you have to pull the trigger, but if you see those prices are over, you should be able to walk away, especially if it's anything from, let's say, the 80s or up. That is stuff that will cross your path again, despite how much you think it probably won't. You will see that item again. When I first got into collecting, I bought plenty of stuff overpriced. I would go to cons, I would buy online, I would go on eBay, and I would get what I want based off of just how much I wanted it. But if you can be honest with yourself and take the step back and know that you're gonna see those things again, walking away is, believe me, the best thing you ever could do. When you overpay for something, especially in a sinking market like how we are in right now, it's very unlikely that you're going to recoup that money ever. And a lot of people got stuck with this with the whole 2020, 2021 COVID boom. People were buying stuff on the higher end of the fair market value, which, to be fair, a lot was at FMV for the time, but a lot of people were overpaying during this time period. So even compared to the values at the time, they were already too high. And now some of those books have more than tanked in half, in 3 and 4. It's astronomical how low some of the book values have gotten. And we're not predictors, we can't know everything, so how would you know that the first appearance of Carnage would have fallen as much as it did? But what you can at least do is stick to the fair market values during the time that you're looking things up. Even before I had a business, I would try to be buying books at like 70, 80, and 90% of the fair market values. And if I didn't see it come within that ballpark, I let it go. Now, there are times when overpaying is definitely a thing. I think it was Golden Age Guru that had this one great quote that I saw where he said, sometimes it makes more sense to pay tomorrow's prices today. Meaning some books that are either undervalued or a personal grail of yours have a little bit more of a upward trajectory, and it really is so rare that you just have to buy it now. I'm joined here by the second highest graded book that exists of the first appearance of Star Sapphire, a book that I did overpay a little bit on. And I feel that it was justified because it's a matter of joy meets FMV. So if we look at this goofy little graph I'm gonna make here, let's start it off here. We've got joy as high as it can go, and the more the price goes, you're gonna start sinking and your joy is gonna lower. So if you get something for free, obviously that is the best possible utils you are going to experience. Looking right around the middle is that FMV. The price isn't over, the price isn't under, it's just about what the book should be going for. You have an appropriate amount of utility or joy dedicated into this book. Now, in some certain situations, let's say you go to a Comic-Con, most wall books are overpriced and often horribly overpriced. So you'd think it would be down here, but sometimes you wind up in this gray area where you think you have more joy just because of the overall experience, and then you get home and you start to realize, oh crap, I definitely overpaid that. There are certain situations where you're going to find yourself in an outlier, and I think one of the main things is a book that you can't live without. This is a personal grail of yours you've been seeking forever. It means something to you massively, and that can offset how overpriced it is versus your joy. You can still get much joy out of something like that. Don't let dealers take advantage of you too. If they're $200, $300, $1,000 over, don't be afraid to say, I think you have this a little overpriced. The recent sales are reflecting this. Worst they can say is no, right? It's worth a shot. For almost 3 years now, I've been talking about this channel of how to properly hunt for comics and try to get books at least fair market value, but also be checking out those yard sales and flea markets to see if you can get even better deals. Because not only are you going to get the most joy, but from a regain your money back standpoint, that is also the smartest way. There are tools like GoCollect.com where you can look up the graded equivalent prices for a lot of keys. There are a lot of websites, and don't forget you can do a reverse eBay search where you can look at the actual recent eBay sold listings for certain books. All these tools exist. So if you're smart, you have your price guides, you have your websites, you should be able to tell what the fair market value of the book is. What has it been actually moving for recently? And if you try to stick to that and even under it without feeling that urge to dive in and go for it, that's how you're going to make this hobby fund itself. If you do too many instances where you dive in and go for it, you call everything a grail and everything is just too wonderful and I just had to do it, you're going to find yourself with a massive collection of books that you're never going to be able to recoup that money. You're going to have to wait 20 years for the prices to go up. And even still, adjusting for inflation, you've probably still lost money. There are smart ways to do this hobby. And one of the best things you can possibly do is self-control. And I know that for collectors, self-control is one of the hardest things. Look at this. I bought an entire King Shark statue that's absolutely excellent, even though I'm getting out of statues. Whoops. Too many examples of that and I'd be in the gutter here. In my defense, I made the first deposit on this before I actually stopped collecting statues, but I digress. Write in the comments below a book that you almost pulled the trigger on and didn't, and then later you were able to find it at a much more reasonable price. I love hearing those types of stories because it showcases your self-control and it shows the rest of the community how we should be acting. As always, I'm going to adjust my slogan here. Keep on hunting smartly. Let the hobby fund itself, folks.